Hi YouTube, welcome back to part 2 of rebuilding the cylinder heads. I'm facing this way because the cylinder heads are looking beautiful and on show behind me, and I want to reveal them at the end of this video. I have done a bit of a cheating before and after, and I say cheating because what I've actually done is got my spare 6-litre heads out of storage. I put the original cam covers on and the original cam housings, but the cam housings I used as masking, if you remember. So they are covered in paint. It's my original cam covers, but not my original heads. But it gives an idea of how the heads would have looked when I pulled them off this engine. And of course, in the montage that I put together for you at the end, with some lovely cinematic music, you'll see how they get transformed. Just one thing before we go into the video. I know a few of you are wondering why I haven't done part 2 of the veneer restoration project yet. The honest answer is I still haven't got my veneers back from JDK Veneering. I am going to call them probably next week and chase it up, because I think it's starting to get a bit silly now. I think it's been about 2.5, 3 months. And when I was there, they said it'd be less than a month. Obviously, I've paid my money as well, so I kind of want those parts back. I don't like when projects that aren't in my garage run over. It just runs the risk of parts getting lost or damaged and then there being an issue. So I do want those parts back. So I am going to chase that up this week, and I'll let you know in the next video. So let's go back in time to where the last video was cut off and pick up there. Next job is to refit the cam housing. These don't have a gasket, it is just metal on metal. I've spent many hours preparing this surface, getting rid of absolutely any, because I've painted my heads, there was a little bit of underspray of primer unfortunately got on this surface, so you won't have that problem. I've spent many hours removing that. I'm as happy as I can be with that surface. And this surface is spotlessly clean as well. Now I've applied the Hylamar blue as tidily as possible. It says once you've applied it to wait for it to evaporate. So I don't know how long that'll take. But while I was waiting for that to evaporate, I actually had a look online. Apparently it's 10 minutes. That's according to Hylamar's own website. I've just realised I need to give that surface there a quick wipe of brake cleaner. I did notice when I was watching the official Hylamar video, and I'm probably showing that I don't know what I'm doing here, which I'm more than happy to admit. I've gone round the outside of each stud and nut. On the video it looked like they went round the inside. I don't know if it matters. I guess we're going to find out together. I'm not going to undo all that now, and I don't think it will make any difference. In my head I can't see how it would, but here goes anyway. So there's a couple of locating dowels, so once it's down I will just need to tap it down onto those dowels to make sure it's fully seated, although I guess it'll pull itself down on those dowels as I put the fixings in. So what I'll do is just wind these all in evenly, a bit like doing the head gasket really. So hopefully it'll pull it across, or pull it down rather, in an even manner. I've also realised I've got the head the wrong way around. There we go, just spun it round. I can now put all the fixings on from one side. I just felt that pull down onto the dowel this side. I'll just check the other end is also pulled down. So this is probably the first time on this engine build that I'm going to properly deviate from the OEM stuff. You can still get these, but they're horrifically expensive. And to be honest, I'm moving to stainless steel where possible. So these are stainless steel M6 nuts. And then I've sourced some Imperial stainless steel grip washers, because all these are is grip washers. And then I've also sourced some OEM or replacement OEM bolts for the cam housing cover. Next job on the list is to install the half moon seals. However, I won't be installing these rubber ones. These are the old ones anyway. They don't make a great seal. These are a very common leak path for oil at the XJS, and it's right at the back of the engine. So if you see oil running out the back of your engine, there's a good chance that your half moon seal has shrunk or is leaking. So if you're doing this, they recommend that you take that out, throw it away, and replace it with one of these uprated aluminium half moon seals. I've just had a look on the guy's instructions on eBay. I then pressed buy it now by accident. So I've just had to send an apology and a cancellation. Sorry about that, Jag Improver. If you want to find these, search for Jag Improver on eBay or on Google. A little nick in that there. I've had these for quite a while and they've been in storage. Hopefully that won't be an issue. Yeah, I had a look at the instructions, and he says to smear a very, very thin layer of sealant on the rounded edge, place it in, and then use the cam cover without a gasket, just assemble it kind of temporarily just to hold that down while it sets. I've left that for the 10 minutes. I don't think there's a back or a front to these, so I'll just go with the shiniest side. Pop that in there. And then we'll just temporarily fit the cam cover, but with no gasket. There we go. I've just nipped up all the bolts. I've not torqued them or anything. They're just literally just nipped up, and that should now be squeezing down on there and just helping it find its new home. I've got everything ready for installing the tappets. Right, I'm learning as I go here. Obviously, I keep mentioning that. Just so you know, these are not instructional videos. You're just joining me along the way as I make mistakes, which I just have. So I'm now 4 in. I know what I'm doing for the rest of these. I obviously wanted to make sure that everything was lubed up and sounded lovely. And when I lubed this one up and put it in, but it still sounded a little bit scratchy, a little bit dry. Didn't like it. So I poured a load of oil down there, not really knowing what was going on. And of course, it just poured straight out of the oil gallery outlet or inlet or whatever it is down there, and has now covered my table down there with oil. Obviously, I've got a sheet down, so it doesn't matter. But clearly, you can't just store oil in here awaiting the engine starting. So what I've come up with is this method. So take the shim and the tappet, give it a last final wash in brake cleaner, make sure we're absolutely spotless, clean it off. Still a bit of dirt in there actually, despite me washing them the other day. I'm now leaving the shim to one side. I'm going to lube up the tappet liberally with assembly lube. I'm also going to pop a bit on the top of the spring, like so. I'm going to take my magnet, I'll pop it in, and then move that assembly lube about, popping the tappet in and out a few times, different positions, just to smear the walls of that shaft where the spring's sitting until it all sounds like that, lovely and quiet. And then I'm going to take that out and then pop the shim in. And then one last time, pop the tappet down and leave it alone. Because What I was doing as well previously with them was moving it up and down, but the trouble is that pops the shim back out, and I don't then know if the shims, probably it can't go anywhere, but I don't know if the shims sat properly. And then install the bearing caps. Is that what they're called? They're numbered, so you can't mess them up. I suppose you could put them the wrong way around. I know, because I actually put some timing marks, which I may or may not use, on the side that corresponds with the timing notch there when I took it off, so I know they all go this way. So numbers towards the exhaust or the outside of the engine. Right, wasn't sure how I felt about tightening down the camshafts there, so I did just have to go at the pub and have a pint chat with one of my mechanic friends called Phil, and he's reassured me that what he would do is set the cam so that it's tightenable down in the middle, because depending on where I rotate this, it either wants to lift up at the front or the back or potentially in the middle. So I've just messed about, and it seems like there gives me enough thread to start on the middle and then work my way out. So get this on one blocks and then start nipping it up. I'm doing the camshaft or valve tappet clearances now. I've checked in the book. I'll just show you that edit now. Inlet valve clearance, 12 thousandths of an inch to 14 thousandths, and the exhaust is the same. Basically, I'm looking for 13 thousandths of an inch. So to check the clearances, I've just put a couple of bolts in here, just random bolts. These are 3/8 UNF thread, so I've just found some scrap bolts. These are literally the only two I had, and this one's covered in paint. But ignore that. 2 bolts in there, and then you can turn the camshaft quite easily by hand. It's not particularly difficult. Obviously, everything's lubed with assembly lube, so I'm not worried about running it dry. You then want to position the cam lobe that you want to measure at this position, so in its off position, so the teardrop sort of shape. And then we're looking for between 12 thousandths and 13 thousandths, sorry, 12 thousandths and 14 thousandths clearance. So you take your feeler gauge and you find your 12, your 13 and your 14 thousandths of an inch. So I'm going to go with 13. And what we're on here, A1 exhaust, because that's the exhaust port, A1 inlet. So just make absolutely sure, by the way, that you don't have 2 feeler gauges. When these come from the shop, they're covered in oil, and they get covered in oil, and they like to stick together. So I'm going to try the 13th thousandth just to see if it slides underneath, which it does. And because it does, I'm then going to move on up to the 14 thousandths of an inch, which I now can't find. There it is. Again, check it's on its own. It's not hiding another shim underneath it. So the 13 thousandths went under fairly easily. The 14 thousandths doesn't want to go. So that is 13 thousandths clearance. So that's A1 inlet, And you can see on my table there I've written A1 inlet 0.13. So that one's good. So just to show what happens when it's below or above, so A2 exhaust, which is this one here. So at the minute it's not in the right position. I need to rotate it round so it's in that position. Fortunately, my rather crappy bolts are in the right position at the minute. I keep having to move them around because I haven't got any more. So with that, again, I'm going to start with the 13th thousandth of an inch because that's kind of what I want it to be. And 13th thousandths will not go under. So that means I've got to go the other way now and try 12 thousandths, which we need this to work now. Otherwise it's out of spec because it's not 13 thousandths. So we don't want it any smaller clearance than 12. And again, unfortunately, as you can see, the 12 thousandths won't go in. So we go down one more. I wish these were easier to manage. To the 11 thousandths. Again, I'm just making sure it's on its own. And now we can get through. So that one is just out of spec. And obviously, if it was the other way around, you'd keep going up until you find the correct measurement. Interestingly, so this was the first head we took off. And if you watch the destruction video of this head, we didn't, or I didn't realise, I was doing it with Andy at the time. I didn't realise when I lifted the tappet housing off that the tappets would all fall out and then potentially mix up the shims. So we were always going to plan to check them anyway. And the results are interesting. So across the board, we're bang on in spec. 13 thousandths of an inch. There's a 12 there, but that's fine. But interestingly, A2 and 3 exhausts, one of them's down and one of them's up. And I have a feeling what's happened there is, despite my best efforts, I've picked up those 2 shims and put them back in the wrong bag. I'm going to take the camshaft back off, swap those shims over, and then hopefully that will bring that one up and that one down. Okay, removed camshaft and everything again. A2 and A3 outlet. A2 and A3 outlet. Let's rotate that and take a new reading and see if that's helped at all. So we're looking for 13 thousandths. There's the 13 thousandths. And that now fits nicely underneath. What was it before? 11. So that's fixed that. Let's see if it's 14 thousandths. Let's see if it's gone the other way. I know it hasn't, but I just like to check. Now, right, that is now correct. And we just want to check A3 exhaust. And hopefully that's come down to 13 thousandths. And everything's in spec. Okay, so I'm looking for my 13 thousandths again. And that fits under just nicely. I'll just check it's not 14 thousandths because it was 15, so we've dropped it down to 13, which is correct, or within spec. There's the 14 thousandths, so I'll just check. No, that won't go through. So now that one and that one are fixed. And we're all in spec. So I think that's what happened. I think those 2 shims fell out on the floor and I just had to guess where they went. Got the cam covers out, ready for painting. Now, any normal person would just put these on. They're brand new. They don't need repainting, but 3 reasons. 3. 1, this is Jaguar XJS OCD and everything must be shiny and sparkly and exactly how I want it. Okay, that's just how it is. Second reason is in storage, in the warehouses, over the years, things get damaged. This probably wouldn't annoy any normal person, but I can't be living with that. And lastly, and thirdly, yes, that's a word, these look kind of shiny at the moment. That's because they've got oil on them while they've been in storage. Once I clean these off, and certainly once they're in the engine, and they're quite inaccessible by then, apart from like these little bits here, I won't be able to keep them in this sort of slightly satin sheen look. They will just end up a dull matte black, which is not what I want. I have mocked them up on the heads, and because my heads now are so glossy and shiny, these need to match. Also, so it's actually four things. Also, I have a favourite metallic, sparkly metallic paint that I'm using for all the pulley wheels and all that nonsense, and I want them to match. First job is to clean all the oil off very thoroughly, and then what I'm going to do is give them a very light sand down, just so that the primer has something to bond to. Let's get out the pink book of wet and dry. I didn't want it to be pink, but it was the only one they had in the shop. What should we go for? 800? Yes, I think so. Right there now. Spotlessly clean. You still can't see on camera, but they are now the dull matte black. There is actually quite a lot of paint missing from here and along the edges, and also on these ribs up this end. So what would have happened there if I had just used them as well is, with all the heat cycles, I imagine corrosion would have set in there quite quickly, and it blows the paint off. And just make sure this is smoothed off, that's all I'm doing. It's like the thinnest paint they put on these. Yes, another day on the heads. This is the B bank. I've just done the camshaft clearances, and again, we're all in spec. I'd rather more of them were 0.013, but 14 or 12 is fine. So I don't need to take that camshaft back out. That one was just on the edge of 14 and 13. That's why I wrote that, if you're wondering. So with all that done, it's now time to fit the gasket and the cam cover. I'm not entirely happy with this gasket, how it's sitting at the moment, but we'll see how we get on. It is one of the proper rubber, whatever it is, metal rubber. I think it just doesn't seem to want to quite line up with the holes. Kind of wants to be that way a little bit. I think it's this bend here, probably just needs to be a little bit tighter. So I'll keep an eye on that as I tighten them down. So talking of cam covers, you'll have seen while I was painting that I decided to go the same colour as the head. I have the correct side cam cover here. I'll just pop it on. There we go. As I was painting, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put the primer on, and then we're going to lay a coat of this silvery gold and just see how it looks. You know, wait for it to dry, mock it up. I even put some of the exhaust on and the water rails and stuff, just to see how it was all gonna look when it was together. And I liked what I saw, so I've made a decision to go completely non-standard with this silvery gold. The other thing I have decided to do is stick these stickers on. It was quite a long decision. I'm not a great fan of stickers and stuff, but I did mock these up, and it just added something. I think especially with the black air boxes, I think that's going to work. I did put these on while I was a little bit drunk. I'll be quite honest, I'd had a few beers with the neighbour in the field and I came back later and I was so annoyed at myself. I had these on the painting table opposite way round, and my slightly tipsy brain, well, it screwed me over completely, and I put the other side sticker upside down. fortunately, yeah, it's there. So fortunately, I managed to get it off without any damage. It took about half an hour. Very patient. I did just nick there with my fingernail, but that's going to be under the other sticker. Oh, by the way, I've also ordered a chrome oil filler cap, because I just want to see how that looks. The red looks a bit goofy now that everything's all color coordinated. I think if that was chrome, it won't be OEM. It will be OEM, but it'll be for a different engine. And I couldn't get the thread size, so I just guessed whether it looked about the same. It might not fit on there, so I may have just wasted, it was £5 or £6. And if so, I might look at getting something done with this. Could maybe send it off, get it powder coated or something in a kind of a dark chrome. I've never really liked that oil filler cap. Just before I show you the finished heads, in the last clip, which was seconds ago for you, but was about a week ago for me, I was just talking about how I didn't like the bright red filler cap. It just doesn't look right now that I've painted the heads. I said I'd got a chrome one on order. I was chancing that it would be the same thread. Unfortunately, it isn't, so I don't think I can use that. I was wondering if I could make one out of the two. I might look into that in the future. For now, I am going to go with the same colour as the heads. I've done this as a bit of a mock-up. This is a bit of a damaged filler cap there. You can see it's got a bit of an imperfection there. I could maybe fill that, but they're not massively expensive. So I've ordered a brand new one that'll come in red. That'll be painted and lacquered the same as the heads, because again, this one's a slightly off colour because I just used a rattle can lacquer on it. I just wanted to see if it was roughly going to work, and it does. But yeah, in the next clips, you'll see this on the heads, and it looks slightly different colour, and that's why. Now, I hope you enjoyed that montage. I know, strictly speaking, it wasn't a before and after, because most of those head parts weren't these head parts. But it gives a rough idea, at least, of the amount of work that goes into turning what most Jaguar V12 heads will look like now into nice, shiny showpieces. The downpipes, by the way, are made by a company called Paramount. I think they're also known by the name Visu. I think Visu's their electronic tuning remapping department, and that's why they've got two names. I'm not going to talk about the exhaust. I just wanted to pop them on just to see how it looked on the heads a few little checkups for me, and also I thought it would look nice for that montage if they had the headers on and the water rails, just so you can kind of see how it's going to look when it's on that engine block. So the only thing left to do on these now is just sort out the filler cap issue. As you can see, it's just a slightly different tone to the rest of it, which will annoy me. So I'm going to get that new one in, get that resprayed. It is a shame that the one I ordered isn't the same thread, because I think that would have been quite nice. That was sort of what I was going for, but it's just too big. It's like a completely bigger design for the. I think it's off the 4.2 Jaguar XK engine, the E-type one. Don't quote me. I know nothing about Jaguar engines apart from these. But anyway, it's not going to work, so I'm going to go with the standard in silver. So that is all for this video. Thanks for joining me again. Hopefully, the next video will be part 2 of the veneer project, because as I mentioned in the intro, I just don't like having my car parts spread about the place for any length of time. I just think it's asking for trouble. So fingers crossed, we'll get those back soon and get that finished up, and see you then.